Hi, everyone, and welcome to session one of the Writing Your Client's Journey series. And today I'm really excited to start things off with Joe Muirhead, who had a very popular interview in the Road to Success Summit that I did a few months back. So she is back to drop some more knowledge bombs for us in a completely different way than she did last time. So, Joe, for those who may not know you or what you do, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you for letting me know that that was a popular interview as well. That's
Yeah.
kind of fun. My name's Jo Muirhead. I'm a rehabilitation counsellor by qualification. And here in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, I have a multi-therapy therapist clinical practice where we help people return to work following injury, illness, and trauma. And I've been doing that now. This is my 8th year. And when I'm not doing that, I'm helping other practitioners build the lifestyle practice of their dreams. And that's something I'm very passionate about because when we are well looked after as clinicians, then we serve our clients better. And funnily enough, they actually get well too. So yay, look after yourself and everything works.
Yeah, it's a
But that's
win-win-win.
not what we're talking. Yeah, it's a win-win for everyone. Cool.
Awesome, awesome. And one of the reasons that we're talking
Mm,
about this today, so last time I know we had talked about money mindset, and you have a lot, of really helpful things to say about that topic. But today we're talking more about some of the mundane stuff in private practice. So,
yeah.
systematizing and paperwork. And you had mentioned that you were the queen of creating a new system for every client, which I thought was awesome because I think so many of us do that. Um,
Yeah.
and maybe it's a luxury we get in the beginning, when we have a small business and there's only a couple of clients coming in.
Mm.
But it's definitely not setting yourself up for success to grow. So, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you think about systematizing and paperwork, and maybe why it's important and why you came to realize it was so important?
Yeah, cool. Okay. So I have a love-hate relationship with systems and paperwork. I'll be very, very honest about that. But if you can't learn to love it, you've got to respect it because hating it
Mm,
just serves nobody. In the beginning, when it was just me in my practice, I did have the luxury of setting up the files every way I wanted it. And I think as clinicians who choose to do this work, regardless of what your specialization is or your niche is, you're working in private practice or you're working for yourself because you want freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. So
yeah.
putting files together, whether it's a manila paper file like I have over here, because, I'm old school, or if it's a computer-based file, which I have over here because I have to grow up, you want to make it as interesting and for yourself as you do the clients that you see. So we all
Yeah.
run really customized, tailored, individual sessions for our clients. No two clients will come into the service with exactly the same way that they're going to be treated because that's not how we do work. So I think for me, I was like, well, I've got this client with this presentation over here, so I'm going to create all these awesome resources and ways I can help myself over here. And then lo and behold, this client turns up with these range of issues or problems, and I'm going to create all these new resources for them over there. And I know it sounds really easy, but things like getting your information consent form sorted and what paperwork you give the client when they first arrive, or what do you give them before they arrive. If you
Yeah.
can get to the point, if you can get to the point where you don't have to think about that anymore and you just go do that, then you don't clutter up your head trying to remember all the steps in your awesome process that you created 3 weeks ago, and then you can actually delegate it appropriately and not micromanage the person that you think can read your mind who can't really read your mind, who's just following the process that you never bothered to write down, aka how Jo brought on her first admin assistant. It was basically so I think at the time I was running 14 or 15 clinical clients at the time, and then I started bringing on new consultants, and they would say, so how do we do this here? And I'm like, you just do it. And they're like, yeah, but
Right.
how do you do it? Well, you just do it. And then I started to realize, oh, that's not going to be good enough. So save yourself the hassle of being burnt out by admin by as much of the stuff that you can put into a system or a process. The most simplest form of that is a checklist. We have checklists
Mm,
quite a lot here. So if you know what one follows after, sorry, you do step 1, then you do step 2, then you do step 3, and then you get to see the client and do your awesome stuff. You haven't worried about, I didn't get the credit card details, or do I have consent for this, or what billing code am I supposed to use for that? I see that coming up a lot in online conversations. That stuff you don't need cluttered in your head. We have billing codes here too, and I just have a resource on my desktop that says, oh, use that. I don't want to remember billing codes, for goodness sake.
Right. And it's I'm thinking about when I worked at an agency and we were implementing electronic health records, and one of the things when you do something like that on a large scale is you start out by writing out every single step, from the time a client is interested in coming to the agency to the time they're seen, and everything that happens in between. And you don't think about how many steps it is. Like you said, you think, oh, you just do it, right? Yeah. But then when you write it out, and one of the directors, used the example of, if you had to write down all the steps to getting yourself a glass of water, that's one of those things you just think about doing, but it would actually be quite a few steps, like you open the cabinet, you take a cup out of the cabinet, you close the cabinet back up, you walk over to the sink, and so especially if you're working with other people, like you said, with having either an assistant or having other clinicians come in, making sure that you have all of that written out is super helpful. And I'll bet you find that if you just told like 5 different people, oh, well, you just do it, and they just went and did it, they would all do it differently.
Yeah. And because they weren't doing it my way, they would do it wrong, because, my way is the right way. And I think we have a lot of potential for workplace conflict because no one can read my mind, which is probably a good thing. But I guess, too, what it also does is we want to be excellent in what we do, and not perfect, but we want to be excellent. So we want to know that we're serving our customers our clients with grace and ease. So if we treat them all the same when they come in and we don't have to think about it, but that that's all taken care of. So, simple things like every time a client comes to your rooms, that they don't have to worry about the payment thing. That's taken care of. I have an osteopath where I go for treatment, and that's all taken care of before I even get in the room. I've paid, I've been given a bottle of water, they've checked to see if my homework's been done, and I just get to sit there and come out, because when I come out of treatment, I'm in la la land, and they know that I'm going to sit there trying to put my PIN number into an EFTPOS machine and get it wrong. So, it's efficient. For me, it speaks about being patient-centric, and it helps me. So I've had to work really hard in building this business because we grew very quickly, and I don't think in a systematized way. I just don't. I think very much in terms of function. What is the thing we need to get done? What is the outcome we need to achieve here? And if I don't have a system to back that up, then I'll just go create one, which I'm really, really good at doing, which is awful for everyone around me. But self-awareness is the pathway to knowing what you do. Yeah. So I created this fabulous business that had a Google Drive plus an electronic health record system plus Dropbox, and none of those things spoke to each other.
Oh, I love that. It's such a good example. Yeah,
that's right. So people would go, Joe, I know that we've created this assessment tool before. Where would we find it? So then I spend half an hour trawling through my stuff using everybody's search functions trying to find it. That's half an hour of my time wasted. That's them not being able to get on with it. What's my time worth? A heck of a lot more than me trying to find that. So centralizing and coming up with a communication strategy and coming up with a drive. So we actually have a Google Drive key. We have an accounts folder key. Now, I will tell you, I don't use it all the time. I am the one that gets into trouble for not using it. And that's okay, because I've delegated boss ladies to actually go, Joe, that's not okay. If you don't follow the system, no one's going to follow the system, and the system falls down, and you, Joe, are going to be the one that everyone comes to saying, where is the? I can't find the. How come I can't access the? And I don't want to spend my day doing that.
Right. But at least you have someone reminding you to do it and catching those things.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I think if you get these disciplines down when you're starting or when you feel like you're small. You got to remember that if people come in from larger agencies, we were probably all given, massive, I'm trying to find one, but massive lever arch folders of your policy and procedure document that no one ever read. Let's not. And then we get fearful that, oh my God, that's what I'm supposed to create for my practice. No, you just need to know this is my intake procedure, and teach a child or teach your partner how to do it. That's the best way to find out where the gaps are in your process. Just sit down with someone and go, does this process make sense? Because if we're doing it all the time, we'll find sneaky ways to cut corners.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, when a team member or a staff member cuts corners, you will get cranky with them.
Totally. I love that. And you could even like team up with another clinician and you could each do it together. I'll be a client and I'll, however it is that you have clients contact you, I'll do that and we'll pretend. And if you spent just a few hours with another clinician and you each did that for one another, you'd probably learn some tips from one another. And then you'd also be able to see where those holes are and where you're cutting corners. And I find that with a documentation, a lot of people do things that aren't really necessary just because someone at some point told them it was needed for some reason, and that could be like an agency or something. So if you could find those things in that process and then cut those out, that'd be awesome.
Well, as an example, one of those things is, what do you put in your note-taking? Your note-taking course and your blogging and stuff has been so helpful for my clients because I've been able to go to them going, what do you actually need to put in your notes? Because all of them were coming to me with months of notes they hadn't completed. You can't, I'm sorry, people, you're just not that smart. You're not going to remember.
No.
So you need to, you're not. And your biggest fear is your records are going to get subpoenaed or you're going to get subpoenaed. And if your records aren't up to date and you get subpoenaed, ta-da, you look like an idiot, which is the whole point of you being subpoenaed, to make you look like you're not credible. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you're actually helping fulfill that prophecy there. There's no reason why we can't be, at the end of a client session, giving ourselves 10 minutes. I now dictate my client notes because I've just found a transcription service that works, or just putting them in really quickly. And following your guidelines, Melissa, my clients are now getting their notes in every day because it's like,
awesome.
I thought I had to write pages and pages and pages of how I came up with this conclusion. And I said, where did you get that information from? And they went, I don't know. And I said, well, can you go to your professional association and actually find out what it is they want? And then can you go check out Melissa's stuff to find out what she says you should do, and then come back and have the conversation with me? So no more excuses, people. Your notes can be done. Watch Melissa's stuff.
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, I love that you're saying you hear it all the time too, because I hear it all the time. It's by far the number one reason people ever hire me for consultation is that they're very, very backed up and need to catch up on their notes. So it's a really common problem.
It is. It's not unfixable, but I think for me, what I used to say is, give me the people, not the paperwork. I love the people. I don't enjoy the paperwork. But for me to continue to love the people, I need some paperwork, because I want to be excellent. I want to be credible. I want to be professional. And unfortunately, paperwork is a part of that. We all have compliance that we need to manage, whether it's professional association compliance or registration compliance or taxation compliance. It's not going to go away. And we need to be grateful for that. Otherwise, we'd all be doing, shamanic healing and weird stuff, or, there wouldn't be enough regulation around what it is that service providers were doing. So we need to be grateful for it. But I think the value is in learning how to incorporate it and integrate it into your practice so that it just becomes second nature. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. And then you don't create the most awesome service of Band-Aids. So this is a colander, and this is how I've been describing it to my clients. So my business was like a colander, and how I patched it up was I stuck Band-Aids all over my business.
So you're like, something slipped out over there. Let me patch that up.
Yes. And guess what happens when you try and peel one Band-Aid off? They all start coming off in a hurry. And then you become completely overwhelmed because you find all these problems that you've got, stuff trickling through, and you feel like your business is crap and you feel like you're a failure. And to be honest, most of those holes in my business can be streamlined or systematized or processed. It's not about the clinical work that we do. It's about the stuff that happens to allow the clinical work to get done. Oh. So leaky holes in buckets covered by Band-Aids are not the solution.
I love that example. It's so, I mean, I know I've, even had that myself just with general business things where you're like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm finally going to get this one thing done. And then you realize, oh, well, to do this one thing, then I first have to do this other thing, or then I had to do this. And it's like, oh, and then I realized if I had been doing this regularly or consistently or created a system for it, then when I go to do it, it wouldn't be such a big deal. It would just be a couple of minutes.
Yeah. So I think the easiest way for us to get rid of our overwhelm is to just take a step back and work out what the step-by-step process is, and not devalue that and think I haven't got the time, because what you're telling yourself is I'm not important enough to actually work this out. And once you don't have to do it all now. You can just start with one aspect of your business. Yeah. So intake is really important to get right. And discharge is really important to get right. So start there. And then do your bookkeeping, people. Bookkeeping and notes.
I know. Those are two big things. I know we talked about the bookkeeping thing in your last interview with the Road to Success Summit. And it's so funny. Yeah, there's so many things. Like with accounting and notes, it's all very, very similar, I think, for a lot of us.
Exactly.
We're just keeping up with those little things, and it's one of those things where when it is done and when you are caught up, it feels so good. It really does, because you don't have that heavy cloud hanging over you. And when you're not caught up, you should be, and you don't feel good about yourself. You don't feel good about what you're doing. You don't feel confident, but you keep trudging along, and then it grows and grows and grows, and it creates a big mess. So
and you feel messy in your head, and I don't think anyone wants to feel it. And who wants to turn up to a client working so hard to be present when you've got all this other data trying to push at the front going, I really can't deal with your trauma because I haven't got my notes up to date. Now, I know we're not saying that, but subconsciously, not a lot of room back here, and this takes a lot of energy, and well, we don't need to work that hard.
Totally. Yeah, and I love the advice of just like pick one thing, work on that. Maybe you do like one a week or something, depending on how many systems you need to systematize. But yeah, just get started. Do you have any maybe like one or two quick tips for people on, maybe since we've talked about this, maybe like keeping up with paperwork?
You have to respect it, and you have to know that it's got to be done. And pretending that you're going to get it done tomorrow is not the solution. So I tell everybody to schedule everything. So if you're really undisciplined around that, I would challenge you to make the last hour of your day the day when you do all your paperwork. And every day you dedicate time to it. If it's something that's under control, then move it to once a week. So I have time scheduled in my week for proofreading, for finance. I have 2 lots of time for finance and accounting because it just requires that much time now. Proofreading and my notes now just get done after I've seen the client. So I dictate straight onto my phone. It goes straight to a transcription center, and it comes back usually within 24 hours. And I have made sure that it's all privacy compliant. So don't, get cranky and put horrible comments in Melissa's chat below. I sorted that. We're grown-ups, we can sort that stuff out. So for me, transcribing and I've used it various times over my life, not so great at transcribing massive, great big reports, but I found for notes it's been awesome. And the other one is get yourself LastPass and pay for the $12 a year subscription. Just do it. Like, if you're not using LastPass and you think $12 a year is too big a commitment, please, can I be that loving?
And for people who haven't heard of LastPass before, do you want to tell them what it is?
Okay. So LastPass is this way that you get all of your passwords stored in this super encrypted, really scary, high-tech place. But all you need to do is remember one password, and it takes care of everything else. So I love it now. I put my get my electronic health record stuff up in the morning, and LastPass opens it for me. I go to my internet banking and LastPass opens it for me. My shopping sites are on there.
Yeah.
As is all my social media. So my vault, my LastPass vault, which is what they call it, is growing all the time. And it's just such a breath of fresh air. And I no longer have the same password for everything, because I know we do that.
Yeah. So it's helping you stay more secure than you normally would, but also helping you manage all that. I mean, there's all these little things that we have to manage. That's such a good example. And I was with someone the other day, and she had forgotten her password, and then we were just trying to do this one little thing, and it should only take 2 seconds to log in, and it ended up taking like 20 minutes. So all those little things that eat up your time and mess with your morale and all of that.
Yeah. So the question I always ask myself when I'm in a moment of flurry and frustration and can't find things, because that still happens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not by any means perfect. But it's like, what could I have done to have made this easy for myself? Just what could I have done? And if I just take a moment, so then it's a commitment, and you don't ever try and change more than one behavior at a time. Just get that thing sorted so that it's a habit, so that you don't have to think about it again. So that's how I've managed to reduce our end of month invoicing, which used to take us 10 working days to get finished. Now it takes 2.
Wow, that is huge.
That is huge. And we've now got a bigger team, and it wasn't the implementation of an electronic record, because we had that when it was taking us 10 days.
Wow.
So there's some pretty big gains to be made. So that's labor I'm paying for there, plus Joe's frustration tolerance, plus the fact that my cash flow was really poor because we couldn't get invoices out and to get paid in time.
Yeah.
So happy Joe.
Yeah, and I hear that from a lot of therapists, either not being caught up on paperwork or not being caught up on billing, and actually, knowing that you're losing out on money, but just not creating that discipline. So I like that focus that, if you do mess up, it's not a matter of beating yourself up or anything like that. Just stop and think for a second. Okay, what could I have done to make this easier? And let me do that one thing now.
Yep. And if you think that your electronic health records provide, so there's workflows in pretty much all of them, start using them, because they're actually pretty darn phenomenal. So my clients, I get them to go investigate. So if you're using Simple Practice, can Simple Practice do this thing? And they say, I don't know. Well, can we find out? And it's like, yes, it can. It's like, ta-da. So I think with Simple Practice, you can actually dictate your notes straight to the software.
Yes, you can on your phone. So super easy.
Yeah, I'm wondering why I'm not using Simple Practice, but anyway.
But I also like that even though there are all of these great tools, a lot of it really comes down to, like you mentioned, just having the discipline and getting it done and scheduling it in and making sure that you say, I am going to schedule an hour for this every single day, or an hour for this every single week, depending on what it is that and how much time it takes. And doing that helps you figure out how much time it does take you, because a lot of people don't even know how much time it takes to do their notes or to do their accounting, or how much time they end up spending on email, all that stuff. So.
And then what happens if you don't know how much time it takes is you delegate that task to another person, and then you get frustrated when they say, it took me 9 hours to get through your inbox today, Joe. And you go, oh, that is ridiculous. Who would ever have that much stuff in their inbox to get through? I would. But if I didn't know that my inbox got out of control or there was stuff in there that was missing, then I would get cranky with that person and think that they were slack or that they were ripping me off. And when you know how long it takes you to do your bookkeeping, then you can be prepared for that and go, I am never spending 4 hours on my bookkeeping again. Thank you, bookkeeper. You can now spend 4 hours on it.
Yeah, and it really helps you determine, if it's something that's taking me 4 or 5 hours, okay, that's something I should probably think about outsourcing. Whereas this other thing only takes me an hour. Maybe I can save money and I can keep doing that for now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think we keep too much clutter in our heads that's really unnecessary. And there are simple ways that we can go about getting rid of some of that angst in us, and systems, processes, and keeping your notes up to date are probably key to that.
Totally. Totally. Creating some peace of mind. Huge.
Hmm.
Well, this has been
Cool.
really helpful. I think we gave people a lot of things that you can do now,
Yeah.
today.
Yes.
Something one of
Yes.
many things we talked about you could choose to do and take action on.
Hmm.
Do you have any sort of closing thoughts or closing tips before we finish up?
Just to I guess you actually have this in you. If you could get through your university or college studies, you actually have all the discipline. If you were disciplined enough to hand assignments in on time and turn up for exams, you got this. You actually know how to do this. So you might not want to do it and learn the difference between stuff you got to do and stuff you want to do. And try and get rid of the stuff that you don't really like, but you've got to learn to do it, and so you can delegate it more appropriately. So that
Totally,
way
totally.
you can have the business that you really want, as opposed to the business that makes you feel flat and awful, because we don't want that.
No, yeah, and there's so many people to help out with all those different areas,
Yes.
whether it's like hiring someone like you to look at your entire practice,
Mm.
whether it's hiring someone like me to look at your notes, or hiring someone like Barbara Griswold, I always say is a great resource for insurance. Um,
Yes.
you know, there's so many people with these different specialties. So if you do feel overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, then that's where you start. Who can help you with that?
That's a great
And get
question.
some accountability with it too.
Yeah. And one thing at a time. Just one thing at a time. We don't need any more overwhelmed people.
Totally.
That's cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe. It's really nice, and I
My
think it's
pleasure.
it's also nice to normalize, and for
Yeah.
everyone to know that this is something we all struggle with, and you have a very successful practice, and it's something that you struggled with. You're able to overcome for the most part, and but there's always room for improvement, and there's still things that
Yeah.
you're learning too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Melissa. I trust that this has been a really good resource for people.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.